This is the Water and Sewer Authority, Watertown, Connecticut, regular meeting on Wednesday, February 18th, 2026, at 7 p.m. We're at the Town Hall at Planning and Zoning Conference Room. Number 1, call the meeting to order. Number 2, roll call.
Marissa Mancini, Alla.
Ray Permini. Joe Massey.
Keith Franson. Number 3 is minutes. We have minutes from the last meeting.
Move to be accepted as read.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Superintendent's report.
Okay, so we have a shared superintendent's report. Jerry's going to do a little piece of it. I have a piece of it as well.
So first of all, on the software update, this is Edmund's software. It's going to be our new upgraded billing software. The first initial data extraction was on 14 January. We had a second data extraction on 11 February. Between both of them, they were successful. We do have a business process review scheduled with the contractor in early March. And then after that, we're going to do a sandbox review, which is basically testing different scenarios with different billing for that, to making sure that it works right before we put it out to the field for our new billing software.
So just I'd like to note that we are recording the meeting tonight. Tonight will be the first meeting, of course, and we're going to test it. It looks like we could cover the whole room. We'll keep the meetings continued in this room. We are not live tonight, so it cannot be streamed into the meeting, but eventually we'll set that up for next month so that people can live stream in and at least watch the meeting. There will be no communicating, and we'll continue to record on the recorder as well to ensure that everything's lining up. That's the first update. My second update is appropriation for water and sewer operations. So we're anticipating in March that we're going to come to the authority to discuss taking monies out of the reserves that we set aside for operations. We've expensed through a majority of the money in our operating line budget for both water and sewer. So we'll be looking for an appropriation to refund those lines so we can continue to pay through. I have to kind of sit down with Michelle Sear, your controller, and kind of talk, do we want to do it over 2 months, 3 months, just so we can keep track of it and keep it on your radar. Waterbury billing, we're having an issue with the way Waterbury is billing us. We can't really understand how they're applying our payments. We send them a transmittal letter basically laying out how we want our payments applied. As we look we look at how they're applying their payments, the numbers don't line up with the dollars we're sending them. So we sent a transmittal letter down asking that they review the process and that if they could give us some explanation as to why their numbers are different than what we're requesting the payments to be. They should net zero, and they're not. So
Is the difference substantial?
Do you remember what the?
Not.
It was several $1,000s. So there was, it's not really material compared to what we pay, but it is several $1,000s, which then, leads me to think, does that apply going back to everything? We have to kind of get this narrowed down. So it's 2 separate topics, but we are on it, and we'll keep track of that.
In the last bill, you actually delivered.
Yeah, I walked it down there myself because I was in Waterbury for a meeting, and
with the transmittal letter.
Yeah, with the transmittal letter, and they really couldn't give me an explanation. So I did ask that their finance director respond to us in writing, so that it could just be a different in understanding the systems, but they need to give us an explanation, and I'll report back as we get that.
Are they assessing us late fees for this?
Well, there was an associated fee that we just can't identify what it is. So that's going to be that was part of our request to explain why it was. The Watertown Fire District has continued to remit payment to the Watertown Water and Sewer Authority. They're paying what they're billed. They are paying under protest, which is very similar to what we're doing with Waterbury. they're reserving their right, to argue what we're billing. So I just wanted to make sure that's on your radar as well.
Okay, the next piece for additional updates, more on the operational side. The assistant superintendent closed today. Currently, we have 3 applications. We do have to wait till tomorrow to see if any came in later this afternoon. And then we're gonna start the process of interviewing for the new assistant superintendent. The Waterbury superintendent, Brad, we do maintain positive communications. We probably talk at least every other week. And I do know their 42-inch line, the one that gave them problems on the other side of the Naugatuck River, is back and it's up and operational. That was the big issue when they had the major shutdown a good 6 to 8 weeks ago. I did notify public health and I gave them my contact information, license to be the operator. Since I carry the right license, it's a D3 license for operating our water system. Some additional updates. Our one project that we have going on now is the Bunker Hill pump station. It was the original pump that we replaced. It was installed in 1950, so it gave a good service life of 75 years in operation. It's installed, the valves are in place. Next thing we're working on is the electrical with the VFDs. The VFDs is really what provides us a good savings on electrical, because it doesn't, the current pump is just on 100% or off. This new pump will operate between that range and save us funding on the electrical cost. The other part, it has to also have the underground conduit that we coordinated with Eversource for that. The key with this is it takes it from the 36 Carvel, hits the Bunker Hill pump station, and brings it up to the straight tank, which that one part of our 2 tanks saved us during the issues with Waterbury, because we were isolated from the system. Over the past month, we had 3 water main breaks. One was on Riverside, other one was, and that was early 1950s install. Second one was on Bamford, that was a 1948 install. And our third one was on Elmhurst, that was early 1950s. A couple of service breaks that we had, Prospect Ave, they had no heat in the house, so it actually wasn't a service break, it actually broke in the house, but we shut it off for the resident. They made their repair, they turned their heat back on from the frozen pipe. Another service call, but on the, no, this one's still on the water side. Hopkins Road had a 500-foot service off of Fern Hill, that they were also shut off at the house, but it froze in the ground. It's a responsibility of the homeowner for that repair. So far so good with the moderate temperatures. We don't like drastic swings. We haven't had anything in the past week, but there is 2 feet of frost in the ground, and so we do anticipate with the hopefully nice weather coming in, that there'll be additional breaks with the ground that's moving, with the frost coming out of the ground. One hydrant was hit on Bunker Hill. That was repaired. It was an old hydrant from the 1960s, a Darling hydrant. And then flipping over to the sewer side, which I was jumping ahead, is we had one sewer lateral that was an issue. It broke at the foundation of the house. It was on the property owner to make that repair. It was on, if I didn't say it already, Winding Brook. SCADA's up and running, no issues. It's our computer controls for our systems. In Turnberry, we've been providing a lot of new services to all the new residential units that are going in there. But the good thing on that is they own everything within Turnberry. It's not on us for that. So that's the operational side for the superintendent's report.
I'd just like to add one more piece. So, given the position we're in, I've spent some time up at Water and Sewer, and we started looking at the procedure, process, and policy manual, and it's quite antiquated. So, not that I wanna bury Jerry in work or myself in work under the WSA, I think it's a good starting place for us to start looking at that policy manual as we set ourselves up over the next few months on how to understand our rates and how do we pay the band and bond off. So what I'd like to do is maybe bring a policy per month to the board, and we could start working on it. In the interim, as we onboard a new assistant superintendent, that project will be pushed on to that individual, which would be a great training piece for that person. Because not only will they see where we've been as an organization and how we work on things, but it will also give them an opportunity to update that and put their personal touch or updated best practice. So I think that'll be a good, I don't wanna say it's an easy lift, but it's certainly a lift that we're gonna try to make for the WSA. And I think one of the first policies we should probably look at would be very consistent with what we're dealing with, is looking at what percentage that you, as a WSA, should keep in your bank accounts and funds. We could actually establish that, just as the town council has a policy on general fund, you as well should have a policy that says there should be 10% or 15% or whatever that number may be. And we don't have to worry about missing anything when we, go through this succession planning with other individuals. Hopefully the next WSA assistant superintendent stays a while, but we'll be better set up to transition if we have to bring in somebody else. I'm all set with that. If you want to go on to public participation.
Public participation statement. At this time, the authority will accept public comments. Public comments is an opportunity for the residents to provide testimony and input for the authority's consideration as part of its decision-making process. The members of the authority may consider the testimony during the discussion and declaration. However, the authority will not respond to questions or engage in dialogue during public comment. The meeting agendas are intended for the authority to conduct its official business. Public comments shall be limited to the matter within the authority's jurisdiction. There shall be no direct public comments regards to individual staff members. Comments are related to staff concerns should be directed to the appropriate administrative channels outside this meeting. We're now open for public participation. So anybody wants to speak?
Hi, I'm Catherine Dinsmore, and if you'll forgive me, I'm going to look at my phone because I made notes. Prior to becoming the Senior Center Director, I had a proven career as a public relations consultant. And so I wanted to offer some suggestions for affordable and non-complicated communication solutions. The first one, I see you're doing it. This is great. I think this will go a long way in not only providing information that people are seeking, but also in just giving the public a confidence that you are communicating with them. So I think this is great. Also, I'd like to suggest that you create an 8.5 newsletter and mail it separately from the bills to ratepayers. And then you continue to follow up with communication in your bills. But the first time you communicate to the people, I would suggest it be separately. And yes, it's going to be a cost, but it is, I think, a manageable cost. And if you don't have someone who is skilled to write this newsletter, an affordable way to do this is to do a draft and then hire a writer or a PR specialist to fine-tune it for you. So you're not spending a lot of money having them start at point 0. You're instead providing them with the information and actually unless someone's within your organization, they're truly not gonna know your language, they're not gonna really know what you're doing, so you would have to provide them with a draft. And that person's job, and it should be just it shouldn't be a long-term, commitment, but, this person's job, and you may have someone within the town who can do it, is just to make sure you are communicating correctly and effectively. And you also could write the newsletter in the form of a Q&A. And so that's easy, and that also approach saves you money. And doing the work, as I said, ahead of time, most of the work ahead of time, is going to ensure that you save money. And the newsletter will ensure that the elderly and others who do not use social media visit the town's website will get needed information. I do suggest creating a Facebook page, but you can create a Facebook page where the comments are turned off. And so what you are controlling the narrative, and I assume that you're going to control the narrative with facts, that's what you want to do, and I know that's what you will do. But you can turn off the comments. And so it becomes a way for the WSA to communicate. People want to ask you questions about it, there can be information where they can call you and get direct information. But I think that would be very effective. But I'm always concerned about the people who don't use social media. I'm very concerned about the elderly. We have a large percentage of elderly people living in the WSA district. And so I think some other things, monthly updates by the WSA at council meetings, that would be very effective. And community discussions where you go to the people. You could have them at the senior center, in the town council chambers, you do it in the afternoons, or you do it in the evenings. And you could promote this in the senior center newsletter, online, the Rep-Am, although we know the Rep-Am is questionable about what kind of information that they're providing on a local level. We have solar message boards, information could be put on those. You could ask the senior bus to drive people who didn't have ways to get to the meetings. And another simple and effective way to communicate is to answer every call and email that you get, and to do it in a timely manner. And the WSA, we all know that you definitely need to communicate to the ratepayers, and I believe you can do it affordably. And the ratepayers and the taxpayers are already feeling really tapped out. So I think you can do this very effectively, and you can do it affordably. And it doesn't have to be a very confusing thing to do. Just, you can do it simply and effectively. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Could you, I think I know the answer, but I would prefer that you tell me. Why would you think it's better to send it separately outside of the bill?
Because, one, some people are not reading their bills. But two, when you send a message separately, the message that is being sent is, this is important. This is something that the WSA and the town want me to know. Therefore, they are sending it separately and directly to me. Subsequently, you can put information in the bill, and you could even say that in your first newsletter to the people.
So an introduction.
Right, you'll see, please watch your bill, we will be doing updates in your bill. But those are my two reasons why I would think that.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi folks, Rich Rosansky. This past summer, the town council agreed to allow the town manager to pursue an RFQ process to try to get somebody to determine valuation for our water sewer assets. I was wondering if at some point we can get a progress report on the status of that. Thank you.
I can tell you right now, we haven't done anything with the transition of our superintendent. We haven't gotten that far. It is still on the back burner.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Catherine Camera, 31 Cottage Place. I'm gonna talk about an email that I'd like you to also get a copy of, so you know what I'm talking about. Cause this email, I'm pretty upset about it, exchange that I had, because on February 9th, I sent an email, I got my bill, it's the first one with the rate increase in it. So I sent an email. When I go on to the, site, it says, customer relation, I think, or customer service. It has a woman's name and a phone number, and it has this email address. So I figured, okay, I'm gonna send this email. So, as you can see, I said, good morning, I have a few questions on my recent bill. Under water use rates, there's now 2 categories. I list those. I say I'm at $4.59, but I would like to know what the 2 categories are because I've never seen them before. And then I said, also, are these new rates what Waterbury is currently charging plus 18% that Watertown added on? That is what I understood was going to happen. Okay, you had a meeting, we had a public hearing last August. That's what I understood. Well, that was February 9th. What you don't see here is there was another email on February 13th, Friday night, because I realized I didn't get an answer, so I responded to them. I said, could I please have an answer? And I copied the town manager. Didn't get anything. I was at the meeting last night, I mentioned it, and now this morning I get, or at 12:18, I get good afternoon. The 2 categories refer to 2 separate public water supplies and kind of lists basically what I said. Best, Watertown Water and Sewer Authority. Okay, that's not really telling me, but whatever, but you never answered the other part. It's sort of like, here you go, and I'm done. So, I said back, could you please answer all my questions now? Thank you. I'm not trying to be argumentative, I'm not, I'm just asking the question. You can see on the next page, what I got back was, we will not be responding to any further questions, respectfully. I'm sorry, that's not even respectful. We're not gonna respond to any further questions. You can see my response. Excuse me, can you tell me why you can't explain that to a customer? So, subsequently, Mr. Ramo did, write back to me. He gave me a lot more technical than what I was looking for, so I went back. And I appreciate the fact he did copy something on there. I mean, it's on the website. Why somebody couldn't have just said, hey, on the website, look at this and you'll get your answer. I didn't get that. Took me, going through this, going through that, and Ms. Dinsmore has just said, one of the things that you need to do is be more responsive to the people in a timely manner. I'm appalled. I'm seriously appalled by this, hey, see you later, don't ask, it was rude, absolutely rude. So we're talking about different ways to save money, and we're talking about bringing another employee to communicate with people. Why would we do that? We clearly have employees that are not good with public relations. I mean, let's train the employees we have on how you respond to people. Why would we go get another employee? You go on the website and it says customer service. So I'm just confused why we would need another employee. And I'm asking you to look at that so that you see, I'm not making this up. That's what I got for an answer. It's inappropriate for customer service to answer like that. So something I want you to really consider about that. I just don't see, I think employees that we have could be better responsive, and honestly, it took back and forth, but then when I got, even if I had been told where to go and I opened that up, my answer was there. I got my answer, and it was as simple as that. You could have gotten rid of me last week. So anyway, and then on a different note, I just want to say a little bit more again about the hiring of the council to explore the issues in litigation, because I don't necessarily think people are totally against that. I think we get the issue that maybe there's a misappropriation of what we're paying and maybe the calculations. I do know Mr. Ozansky mentioned last night, if we have any idea, but I think we're gonna have to wait until we get the first review of that, whether or not it's worth any, how much is it off? Is it off a lot enough to go through that? I get that. I also get the fact that we're now saying that the methodology for the sewer rates is wrong. What bothers me tremendously, and you already know this because it's in your minutes from the last meeting, is we spent 5 years in litigation and this was never brought up. So somebody seriously dropped the ball on that. But I think what the people are having trouble with is that we continue to use the same attorneys, Paul Jessel and Mirtha Kalina, or I'm sorry, Harris Beach Mirtha as they're known now. I will tell you, I've worked 40-something years paralegal, I work in Hartford, most of my friends are attorneys, a couple of them are judges. I've said this to, we've told this story to at least 8, if not more. First question they ask is, who's your attorneys? There's something wrong. And I know what you're gonna do. You're going to go ahead and do this because I get it. We've now lost so much time, you gotta get an answer. There's no time to find different attorneys. But this is a problem for the people. And I feel like, you know, you got a group of people here, they're probably the same people that have been going to these meetings for months and months, and we're all saying, we don't want these attorneys. And, you know, we're a small micro, you know, then you look at Facebook and you got some people following whatever. You don't, for all these committees and commissions that don't have a lot of people that show up, but the people who do, you never listen to them. It just, you know, if you're gonna have a group of people that's gonna show up and try to tell you what, you know, but it just all gets ignored. So I anticipate we're gonna hire these attorneys, but remember, people haven't gotten hit with this bill yet. So if you think that this little group is annoyed about it, wait till the people start getting these bills and start saying, what the heck happened? Who did you hire? And then we gotta say, oh, and we hired him again. We hired him the first time, they didn't do well. First of all, I have a problem from the very beginning that an attorney let us not pay our bills, but anyway. People are gonna be learning this. Not everybody even knows about this. We think that they do, they don't. There's still people out in town that don't. So I'm just telling you from our perspective, because I think it's getting lost that we just, you know, don't want this to happen. We got a lot of concerns. And I do think that people are gonna be very upset when they realize that we got trounced and that we're using the same people again. And I think that's the message that people are trying to get out there. It's not even so much about what we're doing, we understand that, but anyway. That's all I had to say, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I just make a point, thank you to Ms. Kamara for respecting our new public participation. She didn't mention the employee, which, thank you, I appreciate that. But the authority has no authority over the employees. For notification in my back and forth with her, I have dealt with it more appropriately, and I don't wanna say that the employee did something wrong, but the employee took something literally of what I said and responded, and there was a better way to respond. So I did include that employee on that response, and, you know, we'll work on that, but it's very difficult and it's sometimes very hard to understand what's being asked, and we're trying to do a better job of getting that information. So on one hand, thank you very much. On the other hand, it's really not under your purview. This is something that I'll handle on the town side. Thank you.
Anybody else?
May I add something? May I?
It's up to the chairman.
Okay. We'll move on.
Wait.
No.
No? Okay.
It's okay. May I add something?
Sure.
Just going back to talking about public relations. I did some work in a skilled nursing facility in Phoenix. And one of the lessons that I tried to teach was that the gentleman, and he actually had special needs, cleaning the floor was a very important part of public relations, because a lot of times that's what the family saw first. And how he treated them was public relations. And so I think sometimes we think of it in very broad terms and terms that aren't on a real basic level. And so I think we all have to remember that public relations, I was listening to what
Sure.
Ms. Kamara said, and that I work for this town. I know how busy people can get. I know how frustrating, and I know how rude some people can be when they're talking to you. But I think people have to remember that they are the public relations. Every employee in the town, they represent the town, and they are sometimes the first and only people that the townspeople get to see or talk to. So, thank you.
I would just like to, and I don't wanna make this a debate, but I very much agree with what you just said, and I think that we handled probably 95% of our issues that way, and there are the 5% that get away, and we are always trying to make that process. But as you go across America, our citizens treat the employees awful. And this is a problem that's happening across America. And just because you're a paid employee by a municipality does not mean you can be abused. And that's the struggle that we have with some employees because they become sensitive to it. And I think that I could speak after what's been done to me over the last 5 years as a proud police officer that spent 25 years of my life in this community. And it's offensive. I finally grown through it, and to be honest with you, I'm kind of thankful for the process because you made me a better person. But I'm actually attending a seminar on how to bring civil discourse back to our community meetings. And we would love it because, to be honest with you, an opposing thought makes a better decision, and I fully support that. But the message gets lost when it's done in certain ways. So I appreciate the conversation, I appreciate the comments. We may not always agree, but thank you. I'm sorry for digressing, but I think that's important.
I have a comment. Frankie Popolowski, Oakville, Connecticut. I already know the answer to this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Who pays for the fees, new attorney's fees? The ratepayers again?
I think that'll be part of our discussion as we move on. We're not gonna respond to comments.
Okay, how are we gonna afford this? Same question, all right.
Appreciate the,
As for the civil discourse, that's where transparency comes in. That's where, respect comes in. And it's funny how only you three are looking at us and none of you are.
Move on.
no correspondence.
No correspondence. Number 7, new business. Number 8, ban bond,
That's all business.
old business. Old business. Number 8, ban bond conversion 2026. Risk register, standing item.
So I have a lot of information, and this is part of a bigger process. So I developed a lot of items over the last month, and it's kind of to lead us towards where we need to go, and that's understanding how to convert that ban bond and all the other projects that we have to do. So if you recall, in one of the last agenda packets, we put together a risk register. So basically, I want all our risks that we've talked about tracked on this risk register so that we could kind of keep it in front of us every month over the next 3, 6, however long we need to do that for. Maybe it's something that just stays on the agenda and you can visit it and look at it every month. I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to go through this. If you have some ideas or something you'd like to see on it, please reach out to me and let me know. We'll add it to it, and then we could correlate any of the items that are on the agenda so that we stay in sync with what we're trying to track. I listed this as a standing item so that we'll leave it on old business so it reminds us every meeting to kind of sit back and let's talk about the items that need to be monitored so that we don't lose track of some of the items that may fall off and we all forget over time. That would be the intent for that. And, you know, I'd like to thank the WSA staff and Jerry. They've spent a lot of time helping me build these out, and it's a lot of work. I haven't aligned it to the risk register directly, but I will do that for next meeting so that we completely understand apples to apples. I don't know if you have any questions on that. I'd be happy to expand if you need to.
Anybody got any questions?
No.
The monthly review of operational budget, standing item, Fund 015 sewer and Fund 017 water.
So basically, in your packet, there's a, it's labeled profit and loss overview. I just wanna point out this is a draft, because we're still finalizing the numbers. WSA, I'm sure you're aware, works out of two systems. They work out of, and I don't remember the name of the billing software. It looks like this, just so you're aware. Top, it should be in green, it says, profit and loss. Overview, yes. So basically what we're gonna do is every month, we're gonna track our expenses, we'll track our revenue, and we'll present to you in a monthly fashion so you can understand what the net value is of the budget freeze. So that as we get closer to the end of June, you'll have a clear idea of what kind of cash is available to use towards the band, the interest payment for the band. So, I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, we've trued out the numbers, we're within a couple $1,000 of the Tyler financial system, which is really our Bible for finances. But we are off, so we're trying to track those down to see if we could identify why that few $1,000s is off. But the whole goal of this is to report back to you to ensure you that we've frozen the budget, we're keeping track of it, and any monies that can be used from that freeze will be used to help to reduce the band payment in October.
So you don't anticipate a shortfall?
I don't wanna state that, I mean, I'm confident, but again, I just delved into this budget and really tore it apart. I learn something new every day, but I do feel confident that we're gonna end up with a sizable amount of money, but because we froze that budget so we can use that. Don't forget, we're not gonna transfer anything into our capital project line items, so that money's gonna be left there as well. And we're gonna have to re-engage and have a discussion on the capital projects. We'll need to prioritize them and understand what money's moving forward. But I think we're in a crisis, we have to kind of determine, you know, what monies are available to reduce the public's exposure and apply that money through the general revenue.
Will this also tell us what's in the reserve, as part of the reserve account?
So I did provide you a document on another topic I could go through. There's actually a breakout of all the funds, so you'll have that as well.
Okay.
See, update on FY 2026-2027 budget debt service.
Okay, so I have, in your packet, I created an executive summary that kind of went through how we went through the budget, deconstructed it, made our estimates for revenue and expenses. I don't wanna go through this, cause, I mean, I'd be happy to do that if you want me to, but I don't think you want
No,
to.
we can read it.
Okay. In that document, the first executive summary, there are all the balances broken out. I think it's on the third page, and I apologize, I didn't number the pages. It kind of breaks it out, but just to note, the water operations is showing a negative $4.5 million. That's not indicating that we're short over the whole enterprise fund. It's just a shortage in the way we moved money to appropriate it for the payment to Waterbury. So at some point, we have to kind of get back with the auditors and talk about how do we rebalance that, and then I'll bring that back to the authority, say we need to rebalance these funds, and we can do that at the same time as we work through creating that policy on the items. And then I attached 4 exhibits, and it basically went through water expense, water revenue, sewer expense, sewer revenue, and I explained how I went through and deconstructed that part of the budget, and how I came up with the numbers. When we originally went through the budget, we talked about that, and that's what I made, I mentioned that to you as we went through the budget a month or so ago. The second part of that is, let me see here. There's another handout, I just wasn't able to get to it, so I don't know if you wanna pass it around. Keep this one. There's another executive summary that's actually talking about our our debt service. So I'll just wait for you to get all these copies for you. There'll be a fold-out with an Excel spreadsheet piece to it. There are a couple extra copies if the public wants to take a copy.
Thank you. Thank you.
So just, I know that you know that, but just for the record, so you guys have actually taken out bonds for infrastructure improvement, and over time, those bonds have been listed in your debt structure. So the debt structure, let me just back up a little bit. Watertown has had a long history of department heads and people that have been in place for a long time. So as these department heads have transitioned out, we realized that they never really kept up because everybody knew what happened and they were able to recognize those items by just picking it apart and talking about it. Where now we have all these new people in our organization trying to figure that out. So what we did is we went into your bond structure and we actually renamed everything so that myself or finance or whomever could pick the document up and say, okay, now I understand that the 2015 refinance Series C's bond had Waddlesboro sewer principal. It's gonna be very helpful for a new person to come in, and it'll be helpful for current staff to say, okay, I understand how this is structured now. So, and I think that's very important for understanding succession as we move forward. So in the column all the way to the right, 26, 27, this is what we're claiming is going to be your debt service. So if you look at the lower square of that page, the two top numbers, older bonds are titled older bonds total 2018 to 2024. It's basically just the numbers associated with the upper Excel spreadsheet. And it's separated by water and sewer because we have to separate it between the two budgets. From there, we look at 26, 27 band WSA interest judgment payment. It's highlighted in light blue. And if you cross over, you look at $1.2 million approximately. That's what we anticipate that the band payment is going to be in October. There are monies that we have to apply to that to reduce that number, but we're not that far yet. So that's the number that we're using to understand our budget. We then have the proposed 26 bond issue, which is in a beige type color, which is telling us what the interest payment alone is going to be in 2020, late 2026, October, and then go into 2027. So that's another amount that we're going to have to budget for. So to further complicate this, we have these numbers. Those two numbers have to be broken up amongst water and sewer because of our two budgets. So the arrows are indicating that we broke those numbers out just for understanding how they associate between the two budgets. So under the band, the one highlighted in blue, we followed the arrow over and we broke that out into sewer and water. We went back to the original payment to Waterbury and we broke it out and it's a 77-23% split. So we split that amount and we attributed to each water and sewer appropriately. And the same thing, the same exercise was happened with the bond issue. And I know this is a lot of information, it's a lot to absorb, but to break it out at the end of the day, the two bottom numbers, WSA 019 budget debt, those are the numbers that were directly carried over into the budget. So now we've accomplished our expenses, we've accomplished our revenue, and now we have our bond debt. Okay, the next topic that we're gonna have to talk about and kind of really understand how that affects the organization totally would be talking about how do we address the infrastructure, because that's something that we have to, to be responsible stewards of the infrastructure. We have to make sure that we fund infrastructure improvements, but that'll be for another discussion, probably tonight, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I know it's a lot to throw at you, but we're gonna continue to talk about this over the next few months, so it'll become a lot easier to follow as we move through it.
ratepayer communication messaging, we just discussed that, correct?
We did, I just would like to add some of the
Okay.
topics. I appreciate the comments that were made in public participation. A lot aligned with my thought process, and I found some new tips which will be helpful, and will use them. Thank you. I have a lot of paperwork there, I just wanna make sure I'm following my, let's see. So I do wanna include, talking about, infrastructure improvements. So I did a little research. This is the document. No, this is the document I just went through. Okay, I'm ready to move from that. Ratepayer communication and messaging. So basically, after our conversation last night, last month, I took the comments to heart and thought about it. And I guess it's gonna be very important for us, I don't guess, I know it's gonna be very important for us to kind of build a messaging campaign over the next 3 months, maybe 120 days. Because as we're doing our work to understand what the rates need to be to accomplish and cover what our costs are, we need to communicate that on a regular basis. And I'm in full agreement that the needs to do that is, number one, it's the right thing to do. 2, we do have to build trust. And 3, I think it's important for the board itself to understand the process. So over the next month, I'm gonna take some of my executive summaries, I'll rewrite them so that they're more user-friendly, and we'll refer back people to the town website. We'll get all these documents out on the website so people can go look at them as they want to. But we will also kind of reduce it so that somebody can pick it up and say, okay, I get what's going on here. And that'll be the goal, to get some of this information out. After hearing public participation, I do like the idea of kind of doing an intro letter. I think that will be helpful, introduce what we're doing so that people can track it. So I'll do a little due diligence and try to prepare that as our first piece of information, and then the rest can fall into place. But my suggestion would be, and I'll bring you back a proposal next month, is let's, schedule like a 90-day calendar of events on what staff's gonna fulfill for communicating to the public. I think that we should have maybe an extra 30 days there in case we need to go another 30 days and it goes out to 120 days. But I'll prepare that document and it'll hold staff, technically me, accountable to do that. And hopefully we'll gain the board's trust back, and then over time, I hope that we can gain the trust back of the public. So I will bring you back a proposal for that for next month.
E, rate, setting discussion.
Are you rushing me?
Yeah.
I'm trying. So, I have another paperwork, and I apologize, but just going through this exercise of creating this gives me a great base to kind of work with as we start our messaging campaign. It's already created, it's already documented, and we could pull from these documents to kind of get our messaging out. So, kind of want to spend a little bit of time on this and kind of get some feedback from you as the authority. So obviously, we know that we're gonna have to raise rates. I mean, that's not knowing what that dollar amount is, we have to raise rates because we're gonna have to meet the expenses that are created by the increase in Waterbury rates and the debt service that was accumulated from the lawsuit. So I think it's gonna be another standing item that we leave on the agenda for us to talk about every month. I'll bring up these topics, we'll break them out through this executive summary. We could get some dialogue back and forth between you and myself, and then we can produce communications for the public. Some of the key items is basically creating that framework to support and given us an idea of how we're gonna set rates and why we're gonna reset rates. I did reach out to Mike Baker, who created our 2025 rate study. I've updated those numbers. Unfortunately, my numbers kept changing, and he kinda started chasing it, so I've sent him an email basically saying, I need to know what exact numbers you need from me so that he can produce that document. When that document is completed, I'll have him come back to the authority and have him work through his rate study, so you not only have all the work I've done, but now you're gonna hear it from
Yeah.
that secondary, establishment. You know, again, looking at debt service, you know, we've kind of broken that out, we've identified the issues that are confusing to us. You know, looking at, I did a little bit of research, but looking at our size budget at around $10 million combined with water and sewer, it seems like the recommendation was to put 8% towards water and up to 15% towards sewer for infrastructure improvements. I'm relatively confident that those are recommended numbers. I took mostly documents from the federal government and used that information to kind of come up with that analogy. But I would like to kind of get back and work with Mike Maker to ensure that we're in line with that. And then at that point, we could probably turn that into a policy so that everybody knows what the rules are and we just move forward.
The one big thing with the sewer, you have infiltration.
Yes.
Okay, you don't have that problem with water. You got a tight system with water, you don't have a tight system with sewers.
And that would be a reason why we would probably need to put more towards
Right.
infrastructure to take care of the I&I.
Right.
So I think that's a great point that I should be able to document it in a message to our ratepayers. This is what we're trying to deal with. So we are raising costs or rates here, but we're trying to reduce our expenses by working on this item here. And just to go back to our budget, that's why we left $200,000. I forget which line item it was to kind of use it for that, and there was a secondary item for that as well.
For the I&I,
Was it I&I? Maybe I'm.
but also for all the paving projects to support the manhole covers that have to be moved.
So we do have some money that we're gonna use. Oh, leaded copper was the other
Leaded
issue that I
copper.
wanted to leave that money in there, because that's another issue that we have to deal with, and that was one of the projects that the previous superintendent had applied, with,
Public health grants.
public health grants to go after and, work on that piece. So I don't know if you have any questions on this, but this will be a standing item that we'll talk through, right through.
But I also think that's why it's 8% for water and 15% for sewer.
Correct.
So it's double, to kind of also take into account for the I&I,
Yeah, okay.
so. But also offsets with the lead and copper that we're faced with on the water side.
You want us through this?
Number 8, new business. Engagement of legal counsel for financial advisor services, City of Waterbury. Discussion of possible action on executing a agreement with Harris Beach Murtha attorneys to provide legal representation in connection with the dispute involving the City of Waterbury, Watertown Fire District, and with Fontanella, Malone, and Lasaka LLP to provide accounting and financial advisory services
Oh, you did pretty good, thank you.
related to the billing analysis, financial review, and support associated with the matters.
So basically what I'm bringing this back to WSA, we had an executive session, we discussed, this, moving forward this. Just to let you know, this was presented to the town council last night, and it was not a unanimous vote, there was one person, I don't know if they I don't remember if they voted against it or abstained. The council had stated that what they'd like to do is engage this firm at a $10,000 threshold. So in your packets, there was, the scope of work, and it kind of limited down to 5 or 6 topics. The council has agreed to move this forward. They voted to engage this company with the instruction that at the $10,000 mark, they will report back to the council, and it would be reported back to the authority. We're asking you tonight to take a vote and make a motion in concurrence with the town council, and we'll engage that.
What were those 5 restrictions that they put on?
There weren't 5 restrictions, there was 5 topics that were within the scope of work. The only restriction was put on the dollar amount, and because they wanna reevaluate, ensure that there's, this case grows legs, I guess that's the.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
For $10,000, that's really a lot.
It's not the
But that was basically to see whether or not there was cost
Yes.
to go after it.
It was initial research to
Sure.
kind of report back to both bodies to understand how to move this forward. Just as I made the point last night, just our disagreement with WFD and our collaboration with WFD and understanding how they saw it, I think it's important that we kind of vet that as well. And that would be part of one of the topics that were within the scope. The only thing I do want to make clear is that the cost of this is gonna come directly from WSA. And the reason for that, if this moves forward, anything that's recouped would stay with WSA. So for an accounting perspective, I think it's best for us to keep this all in one bucket.
Mhm.
If we move forward and there's something that we have to go back to the council with, we can address that at that moment.
That won't affect us for last month freezing our budget for this year, will it?
Well, it will. I mean, obviously, this is gonna come out of your legal line item. I'm pretty confident there was enough in there, but that would draw down from the monies that we could use
Right.
for the other piece.
But it's not in conflict with what we, of freezing the budget like we did last.
It's not, because
Okay.
there was a caveat in there that with approval by Jerry or myself, we
Right.
could expense that money, and I
Yeah.
think that would, if you approve that, we're certainly going to move that forward, and we'll create a document that's put into the file on the budget freeze, so that we can keep track of what we're doing.
Need a motion?
How do you wanna word it?
I think if you can make a motion that you would concur with the
Town council.
town council's motion to approve the engagement of Harris Beach and Murtha attorneys, as well as the FML LLP, and keep the same restrictions of $10,000 with a report back to the authority.
All right, you said it, I'll move it.
Okay, we'll put it into words.
All set?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion, any discussion?
You need a second.
Second.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay, now any discussion? Call for the question, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed.
Who was the first?
Okay.
You ready to second that? And number 9, adjournment, need a motion.